Good morning, my dear students. In today's class, we are going to learn about the advantages and disadvantages of corporate governance. Corporate governance is nothing but the rules and regulations which are followed in the corporate sector. Now, when the company follows such rules and regulations to govern the corporate in a well-disciplined manner, there are certain benefits as well as there are certain limitations. Now, first we are going to discuss about the advantages or benefits or importance of corporate governance. If they ask advantages or benefits or importance, all the three are one and the same. So, coming to the advantages of corporate governance, the first point is changing ownership structure. See, in recent years, the ownership structure of the companies is changed a lot and you require an effective control on the management of the companies. So, therefore, the management should be very efficient, transparent and accountable to protect the environment of the organization. So, according to the changing ownership structure, the corporate governance also keeps changing. The second point is importance of social responsibility. See, social responsibility means what? You want to protect the rights of the customers, employees, shareholders, suppliers and the local communities. Therefore, the board of directors of the organization are in charge to protect the social responsibility of the organization and they have to take care of the society as well as the atmosphere. Therefore, it is very important to safeguard the social responsibility. Third point, growing number of scams. See, in the recent modern era, there are so many scams, frauds and corrupt practices which have been taking place in India and also worldwide. Therefore, to avoid these scams, frauds and corrupt practices, the organization should have some regularities to govern and to protect themselves from these frauds taking place. Therefore, you need a proper corporate governance structure to safeguard the organization from these kind of scams and frauds. Coming to the next point, indifference on the part of shareholders. See, in most of the companies, what happens is shareholders become inactive. Whenever the management takes some decisions, the shareholders are not invited, and even though if they are invited, they are not allowed to speak out in the meetings. So, such things should not happen. So, the directors have to give a chance for the shareholders to be invited and as well as to take part in the decision making, because some corrupt practices and some misuse of the power of the organization will take place if the shareholders are not involved in the organizational annual general meetings and the decision makings of the organization. Next point is globalization. Globalization means all of you know the organization which is doing its business throughout the globe we call as globalization. See, most of the big companies sell their goods in the global market. So, what do? They want huge capital. So, they attract foreign investors also to invest in the organization. So, they get a huge amount of capital. Therefore, without corporate governance, it is impossible to enter, to survive and to succeed in the global market. Next point is takeovers and mergers. See, takeovers means what? One stronger company is taking over the other weaker company, where there is no formation of a new company. Whereas in case of merger, it refers to two stronger companies combined together to form a new company. Now, there are certain rules and regulations to be followed in case of takeovers and mergers. Therefore, the corporate governance helps to protect these takeovers and mergers to take place in a smoother manner and not hurting or problemizing the other companies. And the last point is SEBI guidelines. See, SEBI means what? Securities and Exchange Board of India. Now, SEBI has made the corporate governance compulsory for all the listed companies. That means it is done to protect the interest of the investors as well as the stakeholders. So, once your company is listed in the stock exchange, you need to maintain transparency and there is no hidden transactions. When you maintain transparency, no one gets cheated, everyone is safeguarded. So, the investors would like to invest in those companies who get listed in the stock exchange. Therefore, corporate governance helps the organization to attract more and more investors to invest in their organization through getting listed in the stock exchange. I hope all of you have understood all the above advantages or benefits of corporate governance. Now let's move on to the second part, disadvantages or limitations of corporate governance. Coming to the first point, ownership management separation. See, the directors take most of its policy decision alone without the involvement of shareholders. So, the separation of ownership and management can lead to conflict between the management and the shareholders. So, this should not be done. Whenever the meetings happen, the owners should be allowed and invited to take part in the decision making. When the ownership and management separation is done, this is a limitation for the corporate sector where most of the investors do not come forward in the future to invest in the organization, as well as there won't be long term growth in the share prices because there won't be more demand for the shares of such companies. Second point, illegal insider trading. Many times I have discussed about this topic in your class about insider trading. Insider trading means what? The company directors, management people reserve certain number of shares for themselves and remaining will be allotted to the public. Since they reserve certain number of shares without allotting to the outsiders, we call it as a insider trading and it is illegal. So, such things can be avoided if the company follow proper corporate governance. Third point, misleading financial statements. See, there are many ways to present a financial statement in a manner without misleading the investors. When a parent company supply goods or sells a property to a subsidiary company, what they will do? They will show wrong figures in parent company books and subsidiary company books. So, they are trying to cheat one another, which is a big limitation to the corporate sectors. Coming to the last point, cost of regulation. See, according to the corporate governance, there are laws which are designed to prevent the fraud activities of the companies. But to follow all these rules, regulations, laws, it is a burden and expensive factor for few corporations, especially for the small cap funds or the small scale industries. They cannot afford too much for making policies and implementing those in all the levels of management. Therefore, it is termed as a limitation because it involves a huge cost. So, cost of regulation is one of the disadvantage of corporate governance. Okay students, I hope all of you have understood these limitations of corporate governance. So, the advantages and the limitations of corporate governance, all of you try to understand, and I hope all of you have written the notes. Okay, meet you all in the next class.